Welcome to Business Game Changers. I have breaking news that Robert David Steele's group, his hashtag UNRIG, his summer peace tour has been canceled by Meetup.com. Their account has been canceled. They had 465 meetups scheduled for the summer, and their account has been canceled. And they're going after their PayPal accounts, their Indiegogo accounts. I guess their PayPal account was shut down for a short period last night, and PayPal put it back up. They're working with meetups to get their account reestablished, and they're working with legal at this point. They're not sure where that's going to go, but at this point, their account has been shut down. I bring on Robert David Steele to ask him what's going on with this situation. You know, for me, it's a classic business ethics discussion on our First Amendment rights and where does a business have the role of holding up our First Amendment. And if they put themselves in that role with community meetups and things like that, from a good practices and an ethics standpoint, should they be upholding that? Or do they have rights as a business to do whatever they want? And, well, I think they do in our country to have rights whatever they want, but where is it that they cross a line to bad business practices, and where is it that they end up falling prey to censoring our community and hurting our country? So we're going to bring on Robert David Steele and talk about this latest development in his canceling of his account for his summer hashtag UNRIG Peace Summer Tour. Hi, Robert. Welcome back to the program. Kind of interesting circumstances having you back.
Well, thank you. What Cynthia, McKinney, and I have realized is that for the first time, Americans are excited about the possibility of a black female alt-left person and a white male alt-right person coming together and focusing on integrity. And what we're learning now from all of the attacks that we're experiencing is that we have gotten the attention of the deep state and of the Zionists behind the deep state, and we are now under furious attack. They are trying to shut down everything about us, including our funding channels. And I want to give a shout out to Indiegogo and PayPal, both of which have recognized the attacks on us as not only libelous, but torturous interference. We've got several pro bono lawyers that are just aching to sue Meetup and PayPal and Indiegogo, but I don't think it's going to come to that. I've written a very good letter to Meetup, and I think they realize they're extraordinarily vulnerable, particularly since in banning our 435 meetups, they've also made it clear that they have 187 hashtag resist meetups that are, in fact, seditious movements calling for the impeachment of our legitimately elected president. So this is a great business case study on how digital assassination is accomplished by the Zionists in particular, but anybody who wants to put together a campaign. And it's a good case study for businesses that have to put humans in the loop and not allow themselves to be deceived by automated libel.
Well, it's an interesting case study because at what point are you messing around censorship and messing around with their First Amendment? And as a business, where is it that you want to draw that line and say, yeah, I'm going to stand up for First Amendment rights, and unless somebody is breaking another law, I am not going to it's unethical to not allow them to have their First Amendment rights?
Well, part of the problem here is that CEOs are very complicit in the deep state, and they're also very vulnerable to pressure from deep state elements, including bankers, senior bankers appointed by the Rothschilds or appointed by the Superior General of the Jesuits, who manages the Vatican financing and the Vatican espionage network in the United States. They're also vulnerable. They're also vulnerable to the propaganda, to the myths of Zionism. I just had a meeting with a black leader, and he told me this is what blacks have experienced for the last 200 years. They've basically suffered the official narrative against blacks and have not been able to fight back. Now, what whites are realizing is that everything, as Dr. McKinney has said, everything that happened to blacks before is now happening to whites. What happened to us with Meetup was nothing less than digital assassination. The precise thing that happened to Alex Jones when he lost $3.5 million because a Google surrogate accused him of being a fake news website. Now, that's when we coined the term hashtag Google Gestapo. And what we've all learned is that Eric Schmidt has been leading an effort to create a massive censorship board in the United States that controls, it actually represses pro-Trump commentary and it lifts up pro-Soros commentary. And by the way, Soros's name is George Schwartz, okay? He is very much part of the Zionist agenda. And these color revolutions are about putting fascists into power rather than communists or legal Western people. What Google Gestapo is about is not only controlling the political and cultural narrative in the United States, and Meetup fell prey to essentially a campaign of inappropriate content reports. And there is no content on our Meetup chapters. They just have the same little concept mission statement that we have on Indiegogo. What I think happened with Meetup is that 100 inappropriate comments came in and some brain dead intern triggered the ban clause and basically closed us down, sent us a stupid form letter. Now, to Meetup's credit, the legal team got involved as soon as our Superior Pro representative went to them and said, hey, we have a problem. And the legal team is now starting to realize they've been had. So we're giving the legal team until this weekend. Yeah, I'm hopeful that Meetup will realize that they're vulnerable. I've got pro bono lawyers that really want to make this a national case. That's not where I want to go. I want 435 meetups reestablished. I have no quarrel with the 1,087 meetups that were established by the Anti-Defamation League, which is another Zionist front. Basically, Zionists control Hollywood and social media. And Meetup is caught between its legal responsibilities, its constitutional responsibilities, and this massive information warfare campaign. And remember, I'm an honorary hacker. I opened Hackers on Planet Earth in 1994. Cynthia McKinney and I are going back to the Hackers Conference in Silicon Valley this year in November. I wrote the first warning letter to the White House in 1994 saying that cyberspace is the next frontier. And we need to have what Kalia, the privacy woman, identity woman, calls, we have to have the individual rights and the business rights of anonymity, identity, privacy, and security.
Well, the question is, at what point does a business have the responsibility to its clients to hold up the Constitution versus their right as a business? Because they, and where is that ethical line?
Well, coming back to the black example, even though Meetup is a private business and they have their own rules, they also have what I see as very poor business practices. This should never have happened. This assault on us should have been referred to our Meetup Pro person who should have come to us and said, you've got a problem. And then we submit a reclama. And then level-headed people with a brain in Meetup Legal say, okay, this is clearly an attack. There's no merit in these libelous claims. I mean, we're being called con men and frauds and that we're running a scam with hashtag UNRIG. This is all a lie. In fact, these people are subject to a restraining order and a civil lawsuit for what's called torturous interference. They're basically trying to break every one of our contracts with Indiegogo, with PayPal, with Meetup, with others. This is a violation. It's a civil violation at a minimum. So I think Meetup will come around. They're slow. They should have been able to do this in one day. But I think Meetup will come around. But the business lesson learned here is you cannot take digital assaults on your legitimate clients at face value. You have to look behind them. You have to have a business process, an ethical business process in place for a considered review. That did not happen with Meetup. Now, I'm hopeful they'll learn from this.
And not to just cancel you without talking to you first.
There's no due process. There's no due process.
Within a social media environment, they have to know that all the messages and stuff coming in isn't necessarily from you.
My best guess, because Meetup is such a large company and it's a valuable company, and I'd like to see Meetup get right with God, country, and hashtag UNRIG. And certainly we're going to be writing to their CEO a certified legal document on Monday if Meetup doesn't come around. But they can fix this overnight. What's happening here, and I've warned the White House about this, because if you look at flash trading on Wall Street, And if you look at the algorithms that Google and Facebook and Twitter and YouTube use to shadow ban and demonetize and all of this stuff, these algorithms are all written by idiots, okay? And so I'm quite sure, I speculate, that Meetup had an algorithm that said that any account that gets 100 inappropriate content reports within a 24-hour period time frame is automatically banned. We don't have time to look at the details. So this is a really good example of weaponized algorithms that are subject to disinformation campaign by the Zionists, and particularly AIPAC, which forces every congressman to sign a pledge to put Israel first.
Well,
okay?
this is an example of flawed logic built into algorithms. This
Yes.
is what people are worried about when computers take over all sorts of stuff is flawed
Yes.
logic. Yes.
Look, I'm one of the foremost published authors on not only intelligence reform, but artificial stupidity and the importance of augmented human intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence. There is nothing intelligent about most algorithms. They're basically lowest common denominator, weakest links in the chain. And I believe Meetup fell prey here to a business process that was automated without ethical thought. And it had no human in the loop. And it had no good business practice with respect to stopping what was clearly a digital assassination. Okay, we have been assassinated, just like Alex Jones.
Well,
So-
Alex Jones is my business classmate. I taught ethics in the business school, and we did a case study right when the Alex Jones things happened. And I said to my students, I said, I don't care if you like Alex Jones or you hate Alex Jones. We are going to look at this from an ethics standpoint and from a business standpoint and
Right.
see if this is good practices.
Right.
And that's what they have to do. And see, is this good practices for you? And is this ethical? And is this what we want to be as a company and as a country?
Well, I'd make a couple of points. I mean, Larry Page is a member of the hackers group that I belong to in Silicon Valley. And Larry is an engineer. And what I've discovered is engineers don't do ethics. Engineers bend metal. Larry came up with this cute little phrase, do no harm. And in fact, Google has done a great deal of harm. Eric Schmidt is busy trying to sell the censorship system he's created in the United States to the communist Chinese. And so in combination, hashtag Google Gestapo plus hashtag Zionist is essential. And plus you have the deep state, the CIA controlling the media narrative, all of the lies about the Russians hacking the election. I would single out John Rappaport as someone people should read, because what we are doing right now is we are living a lie. The 8 tribes of our society, academic, civil society, including labor unions and religions, commerce, government, law enforcement, media, military, nonprofit, they're all basically lying to the public. There is no real face-to-face ability to get to the truth. And so it's very easy for the deep state to use all of its instruments of power to essentially accuse someone of being a fake news purveyor, when in fact, they're actually challenging the official narrative because it's a lie. CIA created the phrase conspiracy theorist to bury everybody who knew that John F. Kennedy had been murdered by the CIA with the approval of Lyndon Baines Johnson and the participation of Israel, Texas Oil, and New York money, and Cuban crime, by the way. So now we had all these lies against the Russians, and CIA rolled out the fake news meme to try and bury everybody who was questioning the official narrative. And of course, you have 9/11. So what is happening here is that businesses are losing sight of the fact that the truth at any cost lowers all other costs. I don't care if you don't like the truth or not. Reality bats last.
Well, they're
Go ahead.
They're shutting down just good discussion. They're saying
Yes,
you can't
absolutely.
question anything, and that's more harmful than anything. You can't shut down meaningful discussion.
Meetup, I want to give Meetup the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I really do think this was a badly designed algorithm with no human in the loop. And I strongly suspect that Maki Yakamoto, who's our PRR pro person, I strongly suspect her boss in Meetup Pro refused to let her do her job. Her job was to protect the $77,300 that our account represented for Meetup per year. And in our official legal letter to the CEO on Monday, if Meetup Legal doesn't come around, we're going to point out that Maki Yakamoto was not allowed to do her job. And she was the human in the loop. She was in contact with me by phone and email, and her boss apparently shut her down. So her boss has an ethical problem. Her boss has a business practices problem, and he or she is not properly representing the Meetup stakeholders who value conversation, who value liberal discussion of all facts and so forth, nor is her boss properly representing the revenue that we represented. So I'm satisfied that this horrible thing that has happened to us, they have done us grievous harm without due process, can and should be resolved shortly. I'm glad to have this chance to give your students a business case study, because this is happening every day. And let me make the comment that this is the digital version of racial discrimination and gender discrimination. This is how discrimination looks in the 21st century.
Well, I'd sure like to see how this goes by. So once you get this resolved or you figure out what they're going to do, I'd like to have you back and we can discuss this from a business case.
I would like to have a Meetup representative back and
Absolutely.
give your students a case study in how they decided to handle this. I have high confidence in the possibility that Meetup is going to come to its senses, because they know they're liable for basically multiple things. I'm more focused on the liability of the people who committed torturous interference, which my lawyers tell me is worth $1 million. But I really want Meetup to learn from this. We're all learning. A lot of this is new to people. And so the bottom line here is, if Meetup will learn from this and immediately restore our account and lock it down so that it will not be interfered with by the Zionists again, or others. I mean, the deep state is now terrified on multiple fronts, including pedophilia, where Alex Jones is doing a tremendous job, and Donald Trump, our legitimately elected president, and the attorney general are doing a tremendous job. Pedophilia is the Achilles heel of the deep state, and it turns out that the Zionists, through Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, are the primary people who have been entrapping politicians and judges with pedophilia at Lolita Island and so forth. The Zionists are also the people that are trying to get Jared Kushner to give nuclear weapons to Saudi Arabia so that we can have a nuclear war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, similar to the war with chemical weapons that the United States provided, that the Zionists induced between Iraq and Iran. So at the end of the day, it comes down to, do we want to restore integrity, not only to our government, but to our corporate business practices? And do we want to have America first or Israel first? That is why we got attacked. And it's up to Meetup to decide if they want to put America first and civil, open conversation first, or if they want to put Israel first and censorship first.
Okay, well, thank you, Robert, and good luck on everything that you have going on.
God bless America. The fact that you and I could have this conversation without being censored is good. Bye-bye.